Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdic Steve, and today I'm joined by Celeste Conowitch. How are you today?
I am doing so good. Very exciting. Kickstarter launch day. So feeling extremely sparkly at the
Yeah,
moment.
you guys are launching the Kickstarter for Rewards and Rarities. Also, you're a full-time designer with 2C Gaming,
hmm
which
hmm
is like just being like full-time in this industry in itself is like an accomplishment. I also, especially if it's like the full-time where like you can actually like do this job and live, like
Yeah,
that's like the
yes.
real trick, right?
Right. Yeah. So please back the Kickstarter so I can keep doing that. No,
So
no.
I can keep living. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been phenomenal. Because I came on board, I think last time I was on was about a year ago, and I had just recently accepted the position to write or be a full-time game designer with 2C Gaming, and leading the Venturemains campaign guide then, and now here we are a year later. This is my second big Kickstarter as a full-time game designer with 2C Gaming. Uh,
Yeah, I
it's full
mean,
circle.
yeah. So, 2C Gaming's been like gobbling up some of the content creators and influencers as well. It's a good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a good move. I mean, WebDM did their project through you guys, and
hmm Weird
um, bef-
Wastelands. Yeah.
yeah, before that, Grant Ellis's project went through you guys as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
You know, Venture Maidens. You know, so you may have heard of that. You may have heard of that one.
You maybe. Yeah, no, and I mean for this project too, we have so many amazing freelancers that are on. I mean, we have like Jen Vaughn, Kat Kruger, like Eugenio Vargas, Willie Abiel, like so very many people writing on this project. I'm
Yeah,
very lucky to have an incredible team of folks around
nice.
me on this one. Yeah.
And so, what is your role? Or well, before we even get to your role, what is rewards and rarities?
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, just launched this morning about 2 hours ago. Rewards and Rarities just went up on Kickstarter. It is a comprehensive guide to adventuring rewards. So this is so much more than just a magic item book. We do have a bunch of magic items in here, but really what we are doing with this book is trying to make treasure in D&D 5th edition fun and easy, is the big tagline that we're going for here. So in this book, we have pricing guides for magic items, how to put magic items in your game responsibly and well, how to make treasure impactful. We have expanded catalogs of non-magical equipment, so new weapons, new armor, over 200 new pieces of adventuring gear that anybody could buy, as well as chapters that expand rules on how to hire people, so like mercenaries, or if you want to hire an army to fight with you at tier 4, or if you want a mount that is actually viable at higher levels that won't just die in a fireball. And then of course that's just some of what we're doing here. Then we have a whole expanded catalog of magical rewards, so boons, blessings, charms. And then of course we move into our magic item section, which is all class themed and class designed magic items. So we actually have class specific recommendations, and each item is designed with either one or two character classes in mind.
Nice. So,
Yeah, it's a
are there
lot. It's a lot.
rules?
We're doing a lot.
Are there rules for acquiring enough domestic house cats to clear out a kobold warren?
I you know what, we can do that in this book. It was really important to me, especially for like mounts and pets. Like we have a whole section
Yeah,
there to give people rules, so like if they did want to build a stable or like fill it full of cats, like you can actually calculate how much does it cost to feed 50 cats, and you can hire somebody to take care of the cats for you while you're adventuring. So when you really need them to fill
yeah,
out a kobold den, you can do it, and then you can put them right back.
So in third edition, it used to be like a joke in our group because the kobolds were like a sixth of a CR,
Right.
but house cats were a quarter. So you
Oh
just needed
no.
enough house cats to clear out the
Bring it
kobold
on.
warren.
That makes a lot of sense. I don't know. Cats are scary when they want something
Oh
from
yeah,
you.
yeah. Like even like I don't know if you've ever tried to rescue like a feral kitten. Not
Oh
even
my
a cat,
gosh.
kitten. It's just
Whoa.
like it's like trying to pick up razor blades
Yeah,
with all the blades pointing in
yeah.
your
It's
direction.
kicking. There's got legs and teeth, and
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, babies are babies are tough once they hit a certain point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even like even like my son was like when he was a toddler, because he was like 3,
Mhm.
and he like I was laying on the floor reading, and he went to run across me and tripped and fell, and we had that. Have you ever seen that crate style furniture
Yeah,
where
yeah.
it's like heavy wood? Well, he fell and hit his face on it and split the corner of his eye, and we had to take him to get we thought stitches, but they just used the thermobond. They put him in a papoose, and then like 4 adults laid across him to hold him still so that they could do what they needed to do.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, in
Yeah.
like when we talk about mounts and pets in
Yeah.
rewards and rarities, there's this section where it's like young juveniles, like baby animals, cannot learn tricks. Like you just can't even deal with that. It's like
No.
they're just so chaotic until I think all creatures are sort of like that until they reach a certain age.
Demons. They're just They're filled with demons until the
Yeah,
demons leave.
yeah. Until they can't learn anything useful.
Yeah. So you had mentioned before we went live that you're actually doing most of the writing on this project.
Yeah. So this is I'm spearheading this project, so I'm both like the project lead and then also the lead designer on this, which means I'm going to be writing about 75-80% of what's going in here, and then of course with the help of our awesome contract writer team, they are the ones really spearheading the magic item compendium, and so I'm developing a lot of the rules and systems and guidelines and philosophies that you find in this book.
Nice. How much of this, since you're doing a lot of the writing, is going to be influenced by Venture Maidens? Will people see
Ooh,
like Easter eggs?
there are some items, so it is very fun. We are going through like the 2C gaming catalog at large and
Yeah.
putting some of our all-star items definitely in this book. It's going to be a small percentage of them, so that you will see a couple Venture Maiden treasures popping up in here. And I mean, I think, running Venture Maidens for 6 years with 5th edition, I think there's a lot of influence that has come over, because I think we all can agree that 5th edition magic items and treasure are a bit of a problem currently with the system as it stands. So I feel like we all as GMs have had to come up with some pretty creative solutions to make treasure work in 5th edition. So a lot of what is going in this book is absolutely inspired by the struggles I have had and then really wanting to fix these issues for people. Like the question of like, what do we do about magic item pricing? Like it's been kind of addressed in a couple different places, and the rules are very
Yeah.
scattered and contradicting and not the best advice. So I wanted to fix that. Or like, it's a bummer that you get punished if you want to bring a horse with you on your adventures, and then you'll show up, you're in a dungeon, the horse can't go inside. Like that's a big problem that I wanted to address with this book.
We like in our one of our first 5e groups. I think it was our first 5e group actually. We had a serious horse problem.
Mm-hmm.
It just did not do well.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we were on like some kind of watch list for Rangers or Druids at some point.
Oh no. Yeah, it's like, don't sell these people a horse. You know what happens.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
fantasy
it's-
PETA was probably not happy.
Yeah.
With it. We just had really bad luck with horses.
Yeah, and it's just it's such a bummer too, because I feel like people love having pets, or
Yeah.
even like hirelings, people, NPCs that you have following you around, and then boom, one fireball and like it's all over, which is a bummer. It puts a limitation on the game that we wanted to give some options,
You just
so people
killed my
could,
solution.
yeah,
Like,
options like people could work around that.
I've definitely have had GMs talk about like their players collecting the menagerie, and I'm like, oh, that's easy to get rid of.
Oh no. But sometimes you just, if you have that druid who just wants to be Snow White and just have 50 birds follow them
Yeah.
around, like you gotta let them do that if that is really what their heart desires.
My general rule is I'll leave it alone unless you make it a target. If
yeah,
you use it in
right.
combat, it becomes fair game.
Yeah.
If
that's
you-
like, oh yeah.
If you let it like fade into the background when we roll initiative, then I'll allow that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that's definitely like one of the strategies we kind of talk about in this book. And I see, a question from chat, for Brian. How do you avoid overloading magic item designs with too many unique mechanics like making them cool but not so fiddly. I think that for magic items and the philosophies with like mounts and a lot of the stuff we're doing in here is like really design things to address the specific problems and then also kind of back up like when you might use these things or why you might use these things. So really getting into like talking about, hey, like when is it appropriate to put magic items in your game? How much should you do this? Why are things priced like this? Or like why maybe do you not want mounts to explode instantly, like when we don't have them in combat? So really honing in on those little specific mechanical uses and then just making sure you fulfill that purpose and giving just enough to back that up.
Yeah, that all of that can be very tricky, right? Depending on what
Yeah.
kind of game you want to play.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know some players, they just want to turn like magic item into like manufacturing almost, and it's
Yeah.
like it's why isn't it like that? I mean, it's fine in games like Eberron, and then I guess the other trick as a designer and a GM is like creating things that kind of fit into the way 5e works without like just trying to make it third edition.
Right. Yeah. It's I feel like right every GM swings between I feel like there's two problems. There's the GM who gives out a lot of items
Yeah.
and then players never really use them. They forget they're there. They sit in they rot in the bottom of the backpack. So like they have so many magic items, but they're not really impactful. They don't really matter. Or you swing between like you give out too many items and then all of a sudden your game is broken and everybody's just like so powerful and it's like outrageous and you just lose control of your game. So I feel like these are the two
who doesn't love a good Monty Hall
struggle
campaign?
Yeah, so we really wanted to, especially with these items in particular, make things that are actually really impactful and meaningful for character classes. Like that's one of the fun I like with the class recommendation system. It's like here is a selection. You can look in this book, automatically see like, okay, here are like 10 items, marked for a ranger. And these items are designed really to enhance the base mechanics, like what rangers do. So, if you have this dual wielding ranger, like, wow, you look at that and like this actually helps out with those mechanics. So this is going to be something that is indispensable. Or, you have a player and basically you're like, hey, okay, make characters, pick 2 uncommon items. That player can go into that book and automatically see like, oh, yes, this is marked. I'm making a barbarian. Perfect. So actually making impactful choices and items that will matter and will actually get used is a big goal with rewards and rarities.
Yeah, I definitely like swing towards making less items but trying to make them more unique and interesting.
Right. Exactly. Or like have some story elements. So something we're doing like, we have like quirks on some of our items, which are, they're not like curses where it's like you must act this way or
Yeah.
but they're interesting things that you can incorporate with role playing, right? So they are more meaningful than just this well with this +1 longsword. Cool.
Yeah. I like it when the magic item becomes like another character in the
Right? Yeah.
not necessarily like an intelligent item, but like
Yeah.
like one of the characters in one of my games, the halfling, received one of her magic items from her grandmother, who kind of had a sort of past that like was slowly coming out throughout the campaign, especially because one of the other characters in the campaign was an elf, so they were longer lived and they actually knew them from their Thieves Guild days,
Yeah.
And so like they gave that character a stiletto named Whisper, and then like when they breathed on it and said Whisper, it turned into a longsword.
Whoa, that's so cool.
Yeah, and then like I like little things like that, and then like I'm more likely to like try and power up someone's magic items later in the game than give them new ones, because
so
let them get attached.
Right. And that's something too. So when we talk about pricing, like, so first off, right away, chapter 1, I was like, how do we deal with pricing? Because that I feel like that's a huge problem and thing a lot of people want in providing guidelines. So in that pricing, we broke down the types of magic items. So like consumable pricing. So, you drink it one time, it's gone, or your charges are up and it's over, versus enchanted is the new kind of category that we've introduced versus permanent. So those enchanted items, this is like if you have a beloved item, you know, with you, you could go to an archmage and put a +1 on this sword or whatever it is that means so much to you, or you could make it a flaming whatever. We really wanted to give options. So those people who, I mean, how many times have you seen this? It's like, I inherited this heirloom from my grandmother, this sword, it means so much to my family. And then it's like, well, it's just a regular sword. And then you kind of have to give it up later because you need a magic something. So
Yeah.
we really wanted to give people options to be able to upgrade items in the way you're talking about.
Yeah, I think like I guess like with the Critical Role books they started with that a little bit with like
like dipping into that, you know, scaling up the items. They did it a little bit, I think, in like Theros as well. It's like, you know, the piety blades, but those are like such powerful items. You know, how many people get to play with items like that, right? You know,
I need something that just starts as a +1 sword, right? And
yeah, you know, it's something. So and then I figured also in the world, it's like, why wouldn't things like enchanting be easier to get and cheaper to get than like finding, you know, wow, a bag of holding. I mean, that's a whole thing. It does its whole like history. That should be a little harder than, you know, oh yeah, I could walk up to a mage college and get a +2 on my blade. Like, why is that so difficult? Is something that I really wanted to address.
I guess there's like this dichotomy between like the new and old style of gaming where like I guess when I first started and in earlier editions, it's like adventures were supposed to be super rare and right, there wasn't a bunch of mages running around. Like literally like in our games, there would be like one wizard that had a tower and you could go there and get them to identify your stuff.
Extremely mysterious. Yeah, the one wizard in the land. Right? Yeah, well, and that is totally, you know, there are so many different settings and games. So the role of magic items, I feel like currently in 5th edition, maybe they were scared to define what that was because there are so many different possibilities. But I mean, something I did with my pricing as well is we did different tiers based on if you have a low magic setting versus like a standard magic setting, which would be, you know, like your Faerun, Forgotten Realms, or if you have a high magic setting, so something like Eberron, for example, versus your low magic, which is going to be, you know, like your Greyhawk or your Dark Sun. So prices scale based on how available magic is in your world. Because obviously, if you are playing low magic and there really are like only 10 wizards in the whole world, obviously magic item prices should be off the charts, as opposed to Eberron, where, you know, the street lights are magic. Like everything should be a little bit cheaper.
I think in 1st and 2nd edition, I think you used to get XP for keeping the items.
Oh yeah, just keeping them with you instead of selling them.
Yeah, and
that makes sense, I think, because like treasure was all very XP.
Yeah, you also used to gain XP from gaining treasure as well.
Yeah, I got 50 coins and 50 XP. That's neat.
Yeah. So it was a bit different. So Brian wants to know favorite and least favorite 5e mechanics to design with.
Ooh, let's see. I always really like leaning on the strange mechanics, the ones that don't get a ton of love. I do this a lot with, I think, monster stat blocks too, like dealing with things like movement and cover or visibility, things like that don't get I think as much love as they should. There's so many different like combat actions, and there's a lot of good stuff if you really like dig into the player's handbook. And what's really exciting is when you use those like weird little mechanics, people go, oh, like I didn't know I could do that. And then they look at it and they're like, this is awesome. I can use my bonus action to do this, or, you know, I can hide behind this and get, you know, this bonus. This is amazing. So those are always my favorite. So I really like designing magic items or monsters that add to those little interactions, those little choices that you get to make mechanically. Least favorite. That's a tricky one. Because I like leaning on all the mechanics that I have available, but I guess maybe the mechanic that like blocks me a bit is the inspiration mechanic. I feel like that one wasn't quite as realized as it could have been. So I do struggle to figure that one out. And I do often try to make magic items or like spells or monsters that have some kind of interaction with that inspiration. So it's not just all in the DM to remember whether or not they have it or they've given it, or, you know, make it a little bit cooler.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, we've in-house have experimented with some of that stuff as well. Like, I love different uses for hit die because it seems very underutilized.
Yeah, hit die, that's a great one.
Like, they made a couple things and then they just stopped, right? And it's like, wow, like, these are actually the cooler things that you changed about the game, and you didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, that's something we've done in Rewards and Rarities, talking about like downtime rules. Like, whoa, how... most people, I think, don't know, unless you're playing Adventurers League. Like, you don't have a lot of like reason to interact, I feel like, with the downtime rules. So looking at those and trying to make those a little bit more fun and active has been definitely one of the goals with Rewards and Rarities.
So as GMs, one of the things we try and do in our games is at times we'll be like, okay, like end of a session arc or whatever, be like, oh, like we're going to pick up, but it's going to be 3 months. Or sometimes we'll be like, it's going to be a year later. What is your character doing in that time? Think about it. Let us know. Let me know.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we can spend part of the session going over that stuff.
Right. Yeah. And so that also, talking about that, like another big goal here was like when you get into higher level gameplay, I feel like you run out of things to do, like with your money. At a certain point, money just doesn't start to mean anything. So when you have like those big, like, oh, I was off for a year, it's like, why couldn't you have been spending all your gold to build a stronghold and, you know, like conjure this army, or, you know, like own a ranch full of magical bison, like whatever you want to do. We really wanted to give people ways to spend money at every level of play, so they really feel empowered to do those, like, whatever it is, those epic things that they go off to do in between adventures.
I guess the other problem too is like when you give out, if you give out too much gold, you get to a certain point where your players are like, at least our characters would really literally
just
have
hand
like,
waving. Yeah.
They like have no reason to adventure anymore.
Yeah, right.
They could live pretty well.
I think it was I was part of a Rise of Tiamat stream, and basically at the end, that's a 2-part adventure. So like at the end of Hoard of the Dragon Queen, you get so much money at the end of that adventure that when we started, you know, our Rise of Tiamat game, we were just like, wow, okay, we don't even need to ask for price. It's so much money that like we don't even, you know, whatever. Like and that was like, okay, it's okay to hand wave it if you totally want, but wouldn't it feel that I like the fun of like, oh man, like we're saving up to buy this like incredible thing, or like that moment of satisfaction when you do get to like make that decision or that purchase. Like that can be a really exciting part of the game that, you know, it's kind of a bummer when it goes away at higher tiers of play.
Yeah, like you said, ending the one venture, going into the next one, you could be like, you could start the next one with like, I'm just gonna hire other adventurers and send them forth.
Yeah, well, and like, isn't that fun if you can? So we have like, you can hire an adventuring party. We give you tools for that to like what it will cost. So like, if you are, you know, tier 3, tier 4, you're dealing with fighting gods and shutting down stuff. So why not hire some adventuring parties? Like, oh no, go take care of that kobold problem over there. We don't want to deal with that. Or like, you know, go clear out these cultists. We're gonna go deal with the leader in the capital. Like, you can, you know, why not? Isn't that fun? Like, to be able to do that,
almost
and
like an
delegate.
Internship or apprenticeship for adventure.
Yeah, this is my adventuring party group internship. Yeah, these 5, wow, they'll learn.
So Parks wants to know, what are your thoughts on having various degrees of masterwork add an extra plus, or say holy water sprinkler mace to add damage types?
Yeah, I mean, I really like consumable magic items, which I think is, you know, something that you're touching on here. I feel like the problem with consumables is that people are too afraid to use them, right? It's like, oh no, I need to keep this potion of haste because like you never know. So I'm a big fan of a lot of consumable items, or just keeping the conversation open to know that my players, like, don't worry, if you spend this potion, like, you will get more potions, like, or you can buy potions. So, like, don't be afraid to use them. So don't be afraid to use your holy water. Like, you can get it, you can get access to it, which I think, so giving things like pricing, especially for those more common items or those one-use items, actually helps players use those items to get those, those enhancements, or to, prepare ahead of time for something.
Think what they're actually asking is about basically like upgraded gear that's not
Oh,
magical.
cool. Oh, yeah. So that's something we really wanted to do. So rewards and rarities, if you're familiar with the arms and equipment guide from 3.5,
Yeah.
I like to think of rewards and rarities kind of as a spiritual successor to that book. And one of the things I really loved about it was their non-magical equipment section. I loved that they had, different crafting materials, or being able to hone your weapons in certain ways or upgrade them. So and there's definitely a difficult line to walk here in 5e, because we don't want to go to the side of 3.5 where it was like, whoa, so many micro interactions. But I think there should absolutely be more tools in 5e to do something along those lines of what you're talking about. So we have provided some like upgraded materials, ways you can enhance things. So we have enchanting in one section, and then we do have non-magical upgrades happening in this book.
It's like, so anyone who's played like a lot of third edition, like, I think you're instantly missing, like, I think they added it towards the end of like second too, exceptional masterwork weapons and armor, and so like I feel like people want that 5e, and I really struggled with it in the beginning, and then after I thought about it, I was like, it's actually a lot simpler like than I thought. The problem was, it's like you can just make weapons have non-magical +1s and 2s, because they interact with the other rules differently. Like, if a monster is immune to magic items, your masterwork item is not magic. It's not going to help you. It may give you a better bonus than a magic sword you have to hit, but once it hits, it's not going to do anything, or it's not going to eat through the resistance.
Yeah,
so
I think
that's not too hard. Armor is really the tough thing to figure out, though.
Yeah, I think the one example we have to work with, like the one item they did this with, was like adamantine stuff. And they're like, well, we'll call it a magic property, but it's not really, is it? Because you're making it out of just a different material.
Yeah.
So I think there is room in there to expand that section a little bit. Like, why not? If you want to put a silver edge on the, on your sword, like, no, it's not magical, but like, wouldn't that be a cool thing? Like, maybe that should do something against werewolves, or whatever it is.
Well, those things they're kind of baked in the rules, because a lot of those monsters are like silver or magic, or adamantine or magic.
Right.
Like,
and so there's hints of it, and there is a precedent that has been set. So like, why not be able to take that, a little bit further? If you can, dip your blade in angel blood, like, to, really hurt some fiends,
why not?
Why not?
Like, what are you most excited about on this project?
Oh gosh. I know. I just love that I feel like there's so many things in here that I really needed as a DM, and I'm just so excited that I can like give these to other people. Gosh, I think honestly I have to say the pricing. Like, I feel like this has been such a thorn in my side for like so many people. And that's why I went ahead. So if you go to the Kickstarter page, which is live right now, you can download the promo document. It's like 15 whole pages, just showing you like different sections of the book. The first thing I put in there was my pricing guidelines. Like, I just putting it in there because, even if you don't back the book, I wanted people to have this. I wanted people to have like a reasonable and useful way to price any item. So it's guidelines on how to do it, how to scale based on setting. And then also I went ahead and did a bunch. I've already priced out SRD magic items for you all. It's not the full list in there, but I did like 50 or so just to give you all an idea, so you can just look at the table and have pricing right there. Because boy, like, sometimes you just want to price something and you're like, you look at the Xanathar's rules or whatever it is, and you're like, oh no, like, it's a totally random chance.
Uh-huh.
random what item they get, like random if it's gonna cost, dirt, or it's gonna be like $1 million or it explodes. It's like it's so chaotic. It's just too much.
Money and treasure and magic items and D&D is so weird anyway. We were talking about just like a character build and using, like an alchemist and making stuff, and
Yeah.
it's like it takes a week to make one vial of alchemist fire.
Yeah, and you're like, is that really?
Yeah.
And there's no scaling. You're like, that's all right.
But it takes like a day to make a healing potion.
Yeah, and
So it's like someone like there's a chimpanzee that works at Wizards of the Coast, and his job is to throw darts at a board.
like that is there's a pricing. There you are.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's rough, and and I know that the argument is like, oh no, if you put prices on magic items, that's just gonna make everybody buy everything, and it's like no. And all the way through in rewards and rarities, it's like this has to be a conversation between the DM and their players. Like you shouldn't be able to walk into every shop and buy anything, but like why wouldn't that curio shop in town, if they have a bunch of junk and then one really magical thing, or every once in a while the innkeeper gets a few different potions like of different rarities. Like there is a way to sell magic items responsibly, and or like if you have a player who just really 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 wants this one specific item, and encouraging them to like save up and find somebody in the world who's selling it. Like I want those to be options for tables.
So Brian Smith actually has a really great question here.
Oh
Any
yeah.
cool designs relating to tools? Seems like they're pretty forgettable in game.
Yeah. Is it just me, or are tools hard to understand what's going on? Yes. So we do have a bunch of new tools that are also going to be in the non-magical section. And a lot of these tools I think are more holistic than the very specific tools that we tend to see. I really do like what they've done in like Xanathar's. They introduced some of these like broader tools and explained like what is actually going on with this. Because I mean, how many times have we had somebody try to be like, well, I have a brewer's kit, is this applicable to that situation? And you're like, so giving some options about different ways you can use your tools, like really digging into mechanical interactions and making sure people understand what's going on in the tools, is going to be something that we really focus on in the non-magical equipment section.
The one skill that really bugs me, and like also should have like maybe some kind of tool application as well, is medicine. It's like you can use it to stabilize someone and then do whatever your GM lets you.
Yeah.
But like other than that, there's like it's super vague.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, shouldn't you be able to use it for a little bit more? There definitely, I've seen some really creative uses of tools in the past and skills in the past. So, why not? Why not lean into that?
When they got rid of they did that whole Unearthed Arcana with skills and tools and feats, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
And they kept like 3 of them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
Yeah, that was cool. Oh, my favorite was all like the warlock adjacent feeds, but that they did a bunch of like cool stuff with that and Tasha's. But yeah, I feel like there is so many question marks with equipment and with magic items right now that DMs are just making judgment calls on the fly, all out there. So the goal was with this, like, let's help a little bit.
Yeah. I'm of like 2 minds on that. Like, I don't ever want to go back to the days of 3rd edition,
right? Where it's just the min-max, like wild.
Yeah, it's like
Wild West.
Edition, like I felt like your gear could go on the adventure without you, and it was
so you didn't really need to be there.
And like it didn't create the rules lawyer, but it sure did give them a lot of ammunition.
Yeah.
Where 5e is going back to more of like a 1st and 2nd edition kind of vibe is for how you run games, and putting more of the onus on the GM, which is good and bad depending on your GM, right? It's great if you have a great GM, But if you have a terrible GM, it's probably not going to
Yeah.
be so good. Uh, so having guardrails to kind of stay within can be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of this stuff too is just giving people ideas. Giving people ideas and then giving people permission to do things and like invent systems and use new
Mm.
rule sets. And like, yes, of course, like you can have your shopkeeper have this small selection of things, or like why not allow your players to build this fortress or make it work. I feel like we just need some help there, as
Yeah.
just like permission and some guidelines.
I
uh
I kind of
yeah.
like the idea that Wizards is leaving it to third party publishers in the sense
Yeah.
that like a player can be like, "Oh, here's a cool thing," but they can't use it to bludgeon their GM or DM and
Right.
try and
Yeah.
bully them into the thing they want. But the DM can then use that stuff if they find it helpful or useful. So I don't know,
Right.
maybe they and ultimately as independent creators, maybe they did us a favor and
Right.
also did.
And not saying this is the law in
Yeah, yeah.
in stone.
And for GMs as well, right? Like they don't have
Yeah.
to. In third edition, there are so many fights at the table over rules, and like your player can be like, "Yeah, but on page whatever in the
It said
PHP."
this, or yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is great. And I mean, that's totally the goal, I think, with products like this. It's like, here are a lot of systems that can make things fun and useful if you want to use them. That's
yeah,
always the thing. It's like, if you don't want like to use the rules we're introducing to make like running vehicles fun and easy, you don't want vehicles in your game, you just don't want none of it. That's totally fine. You don't have to use that section at all. But hey, I mean, if you do want to soup up all that Mad Max fun that's happening in Descent into Avernus, like, and that's really going to be a big part of your game, then there you go. Those rules are here for you.
I kind of want to run like a Mad Max style game, kind of inspired by that part of the Avernus.
Yeah, I feel like that should have been like that could have been its whole thing. And it
Yeah,
didn't get enough love and attention. It's like, wow, that can get, I mean, Mad Max was Fury Road was a whole
yeah,
experience. Like you could absolutely do. And like for writing Weird Wastelands right now with like, that for WebDM, it's like that's a lot of like Mad Max, like out in the wastes, like we're building, cars out of the bones of our fallen foes.
yeah.
Like there's some wild stuff that can happen. And I mean, every game, every table is so different. Campaign settings are so wildly different. Of course you need different like rules and options to be able to address like all the different things that might come up. Because I mean, if you're in a world like full of mages, obviously enchanting is going to be a big deal, so you should have things like that. If you're in a world like Eberron where there's tons of artificers and alchemists, like, yeah, you need to have something going on with the crafting.
So let's see. There was a question I wanted to grab. Oh yeah, from Brian again. Did you open the can of worms that harvesting items presents?
Yeah. So we do have, it's not a like a huge I feel like this is one of those things you could go
It
so
could be
far
its own
down the
book.
rabbit hole. It really, really can. So in like our kind of like our upgrade section, especially for non-magical equipment, when we do talk about materials, we do have like this is something you could do, like this is like dragon bits can
Yeah.
make your weapons like this, or da, da, da. And I
It
think
sounds
in
like it
our
should be a
tool,
snack. Dragon
right,
bits.
dragon bits, yummy. So we do talk about like holistically this and like how much material, like the material of this type of creature, like one of the, there you go. There is definitely, so we touch on it. I don't think we go as like far down the rabbit hole as some folks have. I think especially there are a lot of great resources on the DM's Guild. I think Anne Gregerson in particular has like a really great monster harvesting series where she looks at every single adventure and like every single creature and like breaks down exactly what you can get and what you can use them for. There's a lot of great resources out there if you do want to go down that can of worms. But we're
That
doing
is
a more
very
holistic.
specific.
Yeah, we're doing a more holistic approach, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
to that issue. But there will be something, we will at least talk about what you can get from a dragon corpse, which is something that might have been nice to know in recent.
on
books.
on this project, are you going to be working with anyone you haven't worked with before that maybe you're excited to work with?
Ooh, yeah, let me look at my I think I was so lucky. I got to reach out. Like, I can't believe all these freelancers were like, "Yeah, I'll work with." I was like, "Oh, this is amazing." Bianca Bickford is somebody who's writing on this project who we've been adjacent on projects,
Hmm.
like worked like on adventures in a series, but never actually worked together. So that is going to be really, really cool getting a chance to work with Bianca. I'm excited to work with Justice Armand again on this project as well. Like, he was a lead on a project that I wrote for. So again, it was like we were kind of in the same circle, but like now
Okay.
we're actually writing on the same thing. And then so I think those are my two, like, yay, I get to like work with you like more hands on for this project. And then everyone else, like I have had the extreme privilege of working with before on other projects.
Do you guys do anything with bringing back Residium?
Residium. Oh my gosh, I don't even know. I'm not off the top of my head, but you know what? I bet we're probably gonna, as we dig in more
Yeah.
and start writing the book. I'm sure if Residium is something that has been present in the history
So
of D&D, we will.
I don't know if you've played 4E or not.
I very briefly, there was like that 6 month window where I was like, heck yeah, and I bought all the books
Yeah.
and GM'd a little bit, and then I slid back into 3.5. Oh, Residium is like the that's what you use to make magic item, breaking them down, disenchanting
Yeah,
them and
yeah, yeah,
stuff,
yep.
right? Yeah. That's, yeah, I now remember, because also the 4E books, like the treasure book they had, the Adventurer's Vault, was beautiful. I definitely
Yeah.
looked at that book a lot when I was, scoping out designs for this book.
I
We
feel
don't
like
currently, yeah, we don't really have like a disenchanting, breaking it down mechanic going on in Rewards and Rarities, unfortunately.
I feel like we made a lot of jokes about Residium being magical cocaine
Yeah,
when we
it,
played
it
4E.
definitely like has that. You're like, yes, you get this powder that's
Yeah, you
worth,
turn it
and
into
you're
this
like,
magical powder. Wait a minute, did we
well,
just flash back to the 80s? What's going on here?
yeah, what is? That's like a very video game kind of
Yeah.
feeling. It's a cool idea. I mean, I really, what I really appreciate about 4E is like they really did dig into like we have answers for everything, we have mechanics for everything, and like it was all really well thought out in
It was,
terms of
and they
like,
codified it very
yeah,
well.
codified. Yeah, it was all very, very thorough, which I think is great without being terribly complicated.
Yeah.
So
It just
I
didn't
like
land
to take,
well.
yeah, the simplicity, yeah, inspiration. It was a weird time. I don't think they spun it quite right. Like, and it was also, yeah, the some of the choices. It was just very different, I think, from the
Well, I
D&D
found it
people.
interesting in the sense that, like, I feel like what they did was what video games had been doing from D&D for decades at that point, right? Codifying D&D and turning it into games and gameplay and making it universal so everyone could understand it. And they're like, "Oh, you know what? What if we did the same thing?" And then like everyone will understand and they'll know when they look, and people hated it. Like it was like it still wasn't the hobby still wasn't open enough for that, like certain professions, right? Certain
Yeah.
professions they built a whole language around it to keep people out, essentially. uh and I feel like that's what like earlier gaming was kind of like as well.
Yeah, I think people just weren't quite ready for like how heavily 4E was integrating like with MMORPGs and like video games. Like it just wasn't quite there yet. I feel like now, we're all more of jack of all trades nerds, like where we
Yeah,
do, we play all the games, we read all the comics, we do, it's all the same. I feel like it wasn't quite there in meshing yet.
it was before
When
its
4E,
time.
yeah, it was too before its time, I think.
Yeah, but I mean a lot of the things that found its way into 5e is
Yeah.
definitely
I will say, I mean, 4E,
inspired.
that the artificer that they did in 4E was the only time I've ever been interested in playing an artificer, because they were so cool. Like the way
Yeah,
they worked, it was just so like, whoa. Usually I'm like a hardcore wizard. Like I'm like, no, I don't want any of my no tech
yeah.
in my wizardry. But that I was like, oh man, they
I, I don't know if I
Great.
stayed in
No.
4E long enough to get to the Artificer.
Oh yeah, yeah. That the Eberron book they did for 4E was very, very cool.
Oh,
Like I
maybe
said,
that's why it was in
yeah,
Eberron.
it was Eberron. Man, I mean, I still have all my 4E books. I'm looking at them over here on my shelf. So, I have hundreds of dollars worth of books for a system I played for a very short window. But like, I
That's
love looking
typical.
back at older editions and seeing, what they did and the design choices and the evolution of the game. I feel like there's still a lot we can learn from 4E, from 3.5, from AD&D. Like, I go back and I look at those books all the time. Like, when I started incepting, this project, I went back and I looked at like all the heavy hitter like magic item books. And this book too isn't a magic item book. There are lots of those available out on the market. If you want like thousands of magic items just in a book, cool. Like you can
Yeah.
definitely go do that. But what we're trying to do here is like really address items and treasure and give you tools to incorporate that whole scale in here, not just a catalog. So I've been looking at all those books that really successfully did that through time and trying to, take the best of all the editions and combine that into this book.
Yeah, less of here's a stack of things,
Yeah,
more of
here's a stack of things to sort through,
more of a here's how to think about those
here's how
things.
to think about them. Here's systems that can make thinking about them easier and make actually incorporating them at your table easier. So there's lots of good stuff in here for like players. If you do want to shop for things like expanded adventuring gear, come on, that's awesome. Like stuff you can just spend money on. If you want to hire people, if you want to have vehicles, like if you want magic items, awesome. But also, yeah, for the GM, like how to even talk about these things, how to introduce treasures into your game. When is it good to give treasures? What kind of treasures can you give that aren't just like your standard, the same items over and over again, or just using these treasure tables? We wanted to give you more treasure tables. We wanted to give you options. We wanted to tell you how to talk to your players about options, and so on.
There's a lot of fun stuff. So, where are you at with Venture Maidens nowadays?
Yeah, so Venture Maidens, for those not familiar, Venture Maidens is a 5th edition actual play stream and podcast that I am the GM and
And
producer
campaign
for.
setting, no.
And campaign setting. Now, yes. So we actually we were playing for we've been running for 6 years now. 6 years since 5th edition basically was invented. And so we just ended after 100 episodes, 5 years, our first campaign. And recently started campaign 2, which is set in the same world. So using the same stuff that because about a year ago we kickstarted the Venture Maidens campaign guide, which now it's actually going out to backers in just a few months here. So I've been writing that very diligently, and all of the fun stuff coming up in the campaign guide really approaches the expanding world that we're seeing in campaign 2, and of course all the highlights from campaign 1. Campaign 2 is fun because we're really digging into the Fae and like the surrounding kind of wilderness that we didn't quite explore like fully in campaign 1. So there's a lot of good stuff happening with Venture Maidens.
Taking a campaign that you streamed and then turning it into a product, has that changed how you think about writing your material going forward?
For the games?
Yeah.
Yeah,
For the games that you're running, because you're like, oh, what if I turn this into something in the future? Because I don't know how detail oriented you are as far as when you run your games, because I'm not, and I could having to go back and turn stuff that I made into products that someone else would have to then understand would be a nightmare.
Yeah, it's fun. I feel like it's gotten more fun for my players, right? Because I'll be thinking of something and I'm like, oh, okay, well, we'll do this monster. And I was like, well, what if I like fully like made this a new unique monster, and then maybe we could like put it in a book. And so like I feel like all my designs go from that homebrew level to that polish, just like, yeah, or what if we do this? Or I'll get an idea for a magic item when I'm out and about, and I'm like, oh man, that would be so great for my barbarian. whoa, okay, no, here, let's do that. No, I got to find a way to get my barbarian this item.
Yeah.
It's definitely a cross pollination. So I feel like they're getting a lot more like really detailed, cool things that they can hold and use as characters. It's great. It's great cross pollination, honestly.
So does your design like going forward now make it like make the process easier as far as if I'm going to move this out of a game into a product?
Yeah, I think
Or
so.
were you already that detail oriented before?
No, I definitely wasn't before, but now it's, if I do make something unique in a game, or, I want to do a new mini game or system or something and invent a new spell for the game, it's great. Now I save all of those notes anytime I have something like that, because that can all be translated into stuff that like, hey, well, my players really like. Basically, Venture Man is like one giant playtest. I'm like, whoa, the players love that fight. You know what? I should make that for the public. Or like, wow, they really hated that thing. I'll just toss that in the trash can.
So Brian wants to know, you get one magic item in real life, what do you take?
Oh, somebody said the ring of three wishes. You can't wish for more wishes. That's breaking the
Yeah.
system. Darren's instant fortress. That's a pretty good one.
Especially if you live someplace where the rent's really high.
Yeah, right. I'm in Seattle, so yeah, I feel that deeply. One magic item in real life. Gosh, that's so hard.
It is so hard.
I probably would pick something boring. Like I'm always that guy who wants to like get my stats. Like I just want my permanent stat boots. So maybe like a headband of intellect. So I was just smarter. I would love that. I feel like everything would be easier if I was just a little bit smarter, So
I
things
agree,
like
but
that,
also I feel like that item could be very depressing.
Yeah.
Like,
right. Like you have to put
you
it
take it off at night to go to sleep, and then
You're like,
you wake up and you're just dumb compared to what you were before.
I'd just leave it on my desk, right, when I write, and then it's like, there you go.
Yeah.
This is my work hat, my work headband. That's a good point. Oh man, yeah, you never think about like, oh no, when you take it off.
Yeah.
Oh, or something.
Or
yeah,
or like, do you know how dumb you are when you're really dumb when you take it off, or are you oblivious to that?
You must be oblivious, right? Ignorance is bliss. Let's assume that's how the magic item.
It has that built into it. The cursed version is when you take it off, you now know how dumb you are. In
Yeah. Rats. The curse of humanity. Yeah. There's so many good options. Magic items
and some of them
so
are just
fun.
like, and some of them aren't like really strong in the game, but they are.
But in
like,
real life,
but in real life, if you're like that's OP. Like I don't have to think about working anymore, or have a place to live anymore.
Yeah, like wow.
Yeah.
Man, or something that gave me I don't know if this is an item that exists in the SRD, but something that allowed me to like not sleep, like elves.
Oh,
wow.
Isn't there? I don't know if it's in the SRD or not, but isn't there like an ion stone that does that?
Man, if there is, like, that would be great. So I'm just never tired, and I can just, I can actually like work my 12-hour days and then have chill fun time the other 12 hours.
Or like, something
rad.
allows you to never have to eat or drink. Like, you would save so
No,
much.
I mean, I would want that one because food is love.
Yeah, but there's a difference between like needing to do
having
it and
to eat,
doing it when you want to
for funsies. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, like you just eat because then you would just eat things that you enjoy,
right?
Because you're not eating for sustenance.
Yeah, so you don't need to like watch calories or whatever. You're like, I can,
Yeah.
I ate one brownie in the last year. Like, I'm fine.
I'm good.
I'm good. Oh, man. Yeah, not having to sleep would be great. That would be amazing.
So,
double your life.
Evil Silly Putty, question, are there better rules for making items?
Yeah, so one of our stretch goals actually is like a custom workshop. So basically, if we hit that stretch goal, we're going to add a whole section of the book. It's like how to homebrew. basically it's like the homebrew workshop. So we're going to give you all the tools that you need to like balance all the different types of items. So be it consumable, enchanting, or permanent. We're going to talk about like, we're gonna lift the kilt here, and you're gonna get some design philosophy and a nice like, how to make your own stuff. Like, because sometimes published stuff doesn't quite cut it. So if we hit that stretch goal, you can totally expect that homebrew workshop.
Did you say lift the kilt?
Yep.
I have never heard that.
You've never heard that? We're gonna lift the kilt. We're gonna look behind the curtain.
I've heard look behind the curtain. Lift the kilt's very, very specific. So
I'm more irreverent.
Oh, I read that question. I'm gonna have to remember that one.
Yeah.
For sure. So, when is the delivery date?
Yeah, so the delivery date, so right now, like I said, it just went live today. So we've got 31 days of the Kickstarter. So December 5th is going to be the closing of the Kickstarter with expected delivery for the digital stuff, so our PDF in July 2022. And then all the other rewards, so that, the physical book, or if you want to get the collector's box, which has like the magic item deck that we're doing and like lots of cool additional things. We have like leather rolling dice scrolls and golden coins that you can hand out and like gemstone dice. Lots of fun stuff. All that physical rewards, those are all expected in December of 2022. So about a year from the end of the Kickstarter. And what's great about, 2C Gaming, this is like our 14th Kickstarter that we've like successfully run and,
You've done a few. So you guys have been around a while.
We're kind of pros at this. So, 2C Gaming is a company that you can absolutely trust to, get those products to you, even with the world as strange as it is right now. We are really, really excited to be digging in and offering this one to folks.
Nice. What's the next con you're going to be at, if you are, and if you want to mention it or not?
PAX Unplugged. So PAX Unplugged, I am going to be there. This is my first official con as a 2C Gaming employee. So you can find me there. You can always swing by the 2C Gaming booth. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be running TPK tournament games, which is a fun event we do where it's basically all the tables. You're all playing through the same very hard adventure. And the table that lasts the longest is the winner.
What is the BBEG for this one?
Ooh, for this one, we haven't revealed it yet. We're holding.
I know it's a
secret. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be fun. It's a secret, but when we start doing the PAX Unplugged, the full schedule announcements, I think will be coming out in the next few days.
Have you done one of these before?
I haven't. I've heard so much about them. I'm doing a demo this weekend to like get my first experience of it. So that is gonna be super fun. I'm also going to be there with Venture Maidens. We're doing a live show as well Saturday night, PAX Unplugged. All the art is done. It's moving into graphic. It's going to look beautiful. So that is going to be shipping out in the next, I think, February. Our PDF is going out, and then we're going to work on physical rewards. But once the PDF is available, y'all can go to the 2C Gaming site or to the Kickstarter page, pre-order. You can buy that book. So that's the big exciting stuff. You can also, of course, if you want to see me putting any of these rules in action, here I am talking about rules, see it happen on Venture Maidens. So we stream that live on Wednesday nights. You can catch those podcast episodes anywhere, podcasts are free. And yeah, keep your eye out on 2C Gaming because we've got some other fun stuff coming soon.
Cool. And as always, there are links in the description so you can go click and follow and do all the things that we like you to do, and check out the Kickstarter, and also go download the free download, right? Check it out.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something you like.
So you can go right over there. If you're not sold, you can go right to the page. You can get that promo document so you can see like a bunch of pages of what the book will look like. We've put some juicy bits in from all of these different chapters so you can really see it, see what you're getting. And it's all free. So
nice.
Go check it out.
Get
pricing.
With that, we were right up on the hour mark. And final thoughts before we head on out.
No, thank you so much for having me. This was a delight to chat with you all. I hope you all enjoyed, talking a little bit about magic items. I hope you find this all useful. Also, if you do just want to, check out all the other stuff I've written and doing, you can always check out my website, celesteconowitch.com, which just has everything on there.
Well, thank you for hanging out with me. It's always a pleasure to chat. And until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.